Well, I'd like to follow up your answer to that previous question by first elaborating a little bit more of the situation in Europe today. And as our LaRouche PAC activists who were on the Thursday night national activist call already heard, Dennis Small has pulled together a very stunning presentation, which he has titled "The British Empire's New Concentration Camps." And this presentation focuses, as people will view the graphics currently on the front page of the website, what this features is the outstanding accelerated rate of unemployment, and especially youth unemployment, throughout Europe, as well as the rise in real youth unemployment in the United States. And I think it's significant that at a House Foreign Affairs subcommittee hearing at the end of last week, and it was a hearing on the rise of Islamic extremism. One of the panelists in this committee hearing was asked, "What is the number one predictor of extremism in a nation?" And the panelist testifying answered, "The number one predictor is youth unemployment." And so, as Dennis Small presented in this graphic presentation, and we'll have a more thorough presentation available on the LaRouche PAC website shortly, the number of nations in Europe with youth unemployment of 20% or greater, grew from 6 in 2008 when the crisis began to 19 as of today. In the United States in 2008, there were 3 states that had youth unemployment of over 30%. Today, that number has increased by an order of magnitude. 30 states in the United States have real youth unemployment of 30% or above. Now, this is, as we presented, this is economic genocide, and we're seeing it ongoing in Europe. In Cyprus, there's actually a forecast from the Troika forecasting an economic shrinkage of 60%, approximately 60% in Cyprus by 2015. And these are the projected effects of a policy being imposed by the Troika. Recently on the website, earlier this week, we conducted an interview with Professor Francis Boyle of the University of Illinois, who argued the case that the famine in Ireland was genocide on the part of the British Empire, that there was a genocidal intent, whereas the British during that time simply argued it was the effect of laissez-faire economic policies somehow gone awry. But we have projected effects of the policy. In Greece, the UN Human Rights Commission recently completed its investigation of human rights violations being carried out in Greece as a result of the implementation of the austerity policy and the bailout policy. And they are, for all intents and purposes, concluding, I can just read from parts of the press release from the United Nations, that the prospects of a significant number of Greeks securing an adequate standard of living in line with international human rights standards have been compromised by bailout conditions imposed by Greece's international lenders, according to the United Nations independent expert on foreign debt and human rights. So that is taking place right now. These are provable violations of human rights. Now, this is taking... I'll continue to elaborate and then get to the question. But we recently even had statements from the new Pope Francis saying that unemployment is a sin, that creating jobs is the equivalent of caring for the dignity of the person, and creating jobs is in line with the ability of man, given to man by God, to create. But you really don't need a theological argument. Mario Draghi, head of the ECB, announced rate cuts, a revival of the asset-backed security market, on the same day that the Federal Open Market Committee announced that any plans that they had previously stated to scale back quantitative easing were an utter lie. So you have austerity, quantitative easing or hyperinflation, unemployment, and what this policy amounts to is genocide right under our noses. So my question to you is, how do you prove the intent? And on top of proving the intent, how then do you go about preventing this kind of genocide in the present and then in the future, so that we can say about the present era, never again?
Well, you can say that very clearly, that Adolf Hitler was a simpleton compared to the Queen of England. She has, in the course since the effort to get their program through Denmark earlier and the failure then, she became quite more explicit on this thing. She states that her intention, the intention of her government and of her, is to reduce the human population rapidly from a present level estimated of 7 billion persons to a reduction of nearly 1 billion persons. Not only has that threat been made, but the threat is being delivered. The action is being delivered. This is being delivered in the starvation, which is spreading throughout Europe, is also happening inside the United States. Take, for example, on the Queen's own policy. In our food-growing area, the great food-growing areas of the United States, we find we have a collapse of food supplies, which is not going to be curable and is not tolerable in any degree, because we have taken no steps to prevent that. So the intention of the British monarchy is to reduce the world's population by means such as starvation and similar means. And the intention is to reduce the world's population from 7 billion people to approximately converging on a level of 1 billion persons. So with the policies of the British, and remember the European system is under the British control. The entirety of the European system, of the Western European and Central Europe, is now under genocidal control. And policies which lead in practice to intention. You must then compare the fact that this is the manifest intention of practice under the Euro system, and in Britain in part two, and in the United States. And this is the policy of the current president of the United States as well, who is nothing but a British stooge. He's British created, British controlled, British dominated, and a British admiring. And therefore we are now have a process worldwide of a scale of genocide which has never been known in historical periods of time. The greatest genocide in known historical times is now in progress under the direction of the British monarchy, the Queen herself explicitly, and also Barack Obama, who is essentially nothing but a stooge for the British monarchy.